Hello, this is Shahid Imran with another podcast, and right now I have a special guest with me, and she's from India, at same place, and we I dream my dream. I will visit one day. Yeah, of course, why not? So the reason I'm having this podcast actually is we wanna source sometimes from India because we know that China is not the every time we get cheaper products from there, and there are dozens of things we can discuss from India, what we are missing actually, what really opportunities do we have on our in front of us, and we are missing just due to our lack of knowledge or whatever we can say. So thanks, Meghla, for joining us and for your timing. Thanks for accepting my invitation. Stage is
Yeah,
yours.
thank you so much for inviting me here, Shahid. And hopefully, you will be able to visit India soon. As we were discussing, there's so much common between our countries that it's like the culture is the same, the food is the same, the people are the same, language is the same.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that is the thing. So let us know a little about yourself, a little about yourself and your initiative behind India, sourcing from India. What was your initiative behind it, first starting in international market, and how do you came up with this idea?
Yeah, definitely. So my background is in sourcing. I've been in the sourcing industry for over 24 years now. I started in India, then I moved to the Philippines. Then I worked in China for 10 years. Then I was in Singapore for 7 years. And then 2 years ago, I moved back to India full time and I mean permanently. And so basically, previously, I was working for a company called Global Sources. And then in 2019, I started my own venture, which was to, help global Amazon e-commerce sellers source products from India via India sourcing trip. So I started organizing these group tours to India to teach people how to buy products from there, to visit a trade show, and to basically help people visit factories and learn all about how to source from India. And then we also started sourcing services. So in with India Sourcing Network, we can source any type of product that people are looking for. And one of the reasons I started India Sourcing Network was because in 2018 or so, there was a trade war. The trade war between China and the US began at around that time. And so that was a time when people were looking for alternatives outside of China. And in fact, now so many people are looking, to get out of China or at least to diversify because they don't want to put all their eggs in one basket. So now, apart from India, we're also sourcing in Vietnam. That's another up and coming hub, and also Turkey.
Oh, that's great. Actually, I'm also in the same field. We do source from China, and I really do believe there are so many materials we can source cheaper from China. Sometimes we buy from. Sometimes it's not every time about the cheaper material. It's also about sometimes times and sometimes about our supply chain management and everything. And I really do believe if we work on that in very depth, we can achieve better margins, better our time, supply chain, and everything. Yeah, you have the strong beliefs, and sometimes there can be restrictions from this country to this country, like Trump has already announced it. If he will be the president, he will increase the 10% duties from
Yeah,
China import.
he said
So,
60%.
yeah, yeah. Oh, 60%. It's
Yeah,
it's huge.
60% duties he would import. He would
Yeah.
impose
So
60% duties additional. So yeah, that would be crazy.
yeah, that would be crazy actually. So in that case, the other options we have to look like from Turkey, from India, from Mexico, from Vietnam, and some other countries as well. So,
Yeah.
but I'm in Europe. I visited some factories in last weeks. I was just exploring the more options for comparison of prices from China to same product for because there sometimes we have to look about not just price. We have to look also timelines. If we are boating from China, it's taking almost 90 days, 90 to 100 days sometimes. Uh, 40 days in manufacture, shipping, and every time, and shipping manufacturing can be delayed, and those are all of things we have to keep in our mind before starting. So, what is your thoughts on sourcing from India? How we can start it? Like as a beginner, if I know I can source, I know how to source it. I know how to get manufactured a product. What SOPs has to be followed, and how I can do it actually. Why I can we do it virtually, or we have to visit India? What options really do we have?
Yeah. I think the number one thing that you should consider is the product sourceable in India profitably and competitively? Because all of the different production hubs, whether it's India, Vietnam, Turkey, they specialize in certain items. So, in China, you can source anything and everything. It's not a matter of whether it's made or not, it's a matter of how much will it cost, right? So, and there is no other country that can compete directly with China in terms of the breadth of products that China can make. So, for India and any other alternative markets, there are specific products that these countries are currently competitive for. So, you have to make sure that the product that you are sourcing is actually competitive in these products. So, for example, for India, a lot of products that are made in India are made from natural materials. So, for example, cotton fabrics or anything that is made out of cotton, whether it's textiles, home furnishings, apparel, baby garments, any type of cotton material is very competitive in India. Second, you can also consider things like leather, for example. Leather, there's a lot of handmade leather. Also, a lot of the home decor items that are made from natural wood or metal, for example, or ceramic, glass, those kinds of natural raw materials are really good in India. There are a lot of unique products that can be found in India that are made from these types of materials that are handcrafted by artisans that specialize in these types of materials. For example, there's this city in India called Muradabad that specializes in metal products. So you'll find a lot of artisans over there that are very skilled in using metal. And the products that they make are very beautiful, high quality because they're handmade, and they can sell at a very premium price. So those kinds of products you cannot find in China or Turkey or Vietnam. That those are very unique to India. But even though they're unique to India, the designs and the colors and finishes and everything, they are according to Western taste. So that's something that's happened in India. There are these artisans that specialize and have these skills to work with different materials, and there are exporters that understand overseas markets, and they have leveraged the skills of these artisans to produce products for exports. So, for example, all of the wooden cutting boards, cheese boards, all of those kinds of things you'll find in India that are for the US market, but they're actually made by artisans in India. Then there are other categories as well. So, for example, there's very unique kind of printing methods like hand block printing. That is something that's again very unique to India that's not found in other countries. So that's the number one step. We won't go through all the list of items that are available in India, but the key thing is if you're looking for more natural materials, eco-friendly, India is the place to go. If you're looking for electronics, currently it's still China. There are, of course, a lot of electronics manufacturers in India, but they are mostly producing for very large companies, and they're like multi-million dollar contracts. So it's not good for Amazon e-commerce sellers or any other small size kind of business. If you're looking for any kind of plastic injection item, typically that is still better in China because there's so much volume, there's so many different factories that are doing these kinds of products. India does do plastic injection, but China will be more competitive for most of those products. Toys is an industry that is growing in India. Still, I mean, China is very competitive, of course, because the toys industry is massive over there. But in India, it is growing. And if you want to diversify, if you specialize in toys and you want to diversify, just so that you're not putting all your eggs in one basket, then India is a good, option for that as well for toys.
Oh, that's really great. Actually, that is a discussion that come from experience actually, and you are doing it, and it was really, really, really useful because When we talk about sourcing from other country, it's not about competing against China, because every time we take it, we are competing against China. We can come over China. No, no, no. It's not like this, because it is like this. Which material you can source from India in better price? Like you mentioned, wood cheese port. You have mentioned it very perfectly. So that is the whole point. We have to know, like as a buyer, as a seller on Amazon, we should know about it. If that material is we can source better from that country, we should go from there. If we are saving just $1 for one product and we are selling 1,000 units and 100 lakh units, there is a huge opportunity for us. And do you have make any sort kind of list of materials if you have shared on your network previously? If you will follow that list, you will be able to find out which products are really really easy to source from India.
Yeah,
Material. Have you
actually,
made
we
something
have
like?
yeah, we have made an ebook that is available for download from our website. So maybe I can share the URL with you later on and you can put it in the description. But it's
Yeah,
basically
for sure.
indiasourcing.net/ebook. That's the URL. And people can go there, download the ebook, and it gives a very detailed description of all the different types of products that can be sourced in India.
Okay. So this till yet we have covered why sourcing from India and which materials we can source. So let's get a little move forward. Let's suppose we have finalized out one product. You can take any product example. Is it possible? My second question to source well, because Amazon sellers they do most of time they do go for China. Due to that, they can do it virtually. It's a huge effect, you know it, because they can do the sourcing virtually while sitting thousands of miles away from China. They can do it online. So is it possible in the say, in India also?
Yes, definitely. It is possible in India to source virtually. And there are a couple of different ways of finding suppliers. Well, first of all, I just want to say that whether you're sourcing from China, India, or any country, if you personally visit the supplier, visit the factory, then that just takes your business to the next level. Because the supplier is going to take you so much more seriously that you have traveled all the way to the country and you're coming to meet them. You've spent time, money, effort to do that, so you're of course a very serious buyer in their eyes. And so they will give you long term, like, better prices. You'll get better payment terms, and it's going to be a better sourcing experience if you go there in person. So I would always recommend, wherever you're sourcing from, try to go visit your factory. Of course, you need to make sure that you're sourcing in high enough volumes and it makes sense for you economically to go there. Secondly, also visiting trade shows in any country is really, really beneficial. There are some trade shows in India as well that are held, and we can talk about that later. So, I mean, in person sourcing is the best, in my opinion. But of course, in case you can't do that, in case you can't visit India, then the second option is to source virtually. Now, there are a couple of different ways to do this. Number one, you can either do it yourself, so it's DIY. Number two, you can use a sourcing agency like India Sourcing Network, and that's sort of like a done for you service. So, in case you want to do DIY, there are a couple of different ways of finding suppliers. So, first of all, because Google is not blocked in India like it is in China, you can go on Google and just search for so and so manufacturers India, so like cotton apparel manufacturers India. You'll find a lot of different websites, a lot of different um, uh, uh, supplier listing websites or supplier directories will come up as well. So you've got to make sure that you scroll down and you find actual websites of suppliers. There's one website that will always come up, which is India Mart. India Mart is a very domestic focused website, so I would really avoid that website, because a lot of the companies on India Mart are actually trading companies that are selling in the domestic market. They're not necessarily exporters, and they don't understand the demands and the requirements of overseas markets, because India has 1.4 billion people. So there's a lot of demand for products domestically. And there's a huge, 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 gigantic manufacturing industry over here that caters only to the domestic market. But India is also very price sensitive. So they have different quality standards. So those types of manufacturers may not understand the US quality requirements or design requirements or certifications, for example. So avoid India Mart as much as possible. You can also go to Alibaba and Global Sources. And these are, of course, two websites that are really China focused. However, they do have suppliers from India and other countries as well. In fact, I started working with Global Sources like 24 years ago. So they've been in India for a long time, but there aren't too many suppliers on Alibaba, from India, but it's at least a good start. However, a lot of companies on Alibaba and Global Sources, again, are trading companies. They may or may not be manufacturers. Um, but the important
Same in
thing
China.
is that, yeah, same in China, exactly. But the important thing is that they're at least exporters. So both of these directories are export focused. So you won't find any domestic only companies over there, So of course it's much better than India Mart. And even when you find suppliers on Google, you've got to make sure that you talk to them and make sure that they're actually exporters. One of the issues with contacting companies, just via their website is that they will not respond. Like 8 out of 10 will not reply to you. And it happens in China as well. Because, they, I mean, first of all, they're getting so many inquiries, from their website and everything. So they, if they're getting a random inquiry from somebody who's asking for like 100 pieces, 200 pieces, they will not prioritize that email. They will prioritize an email where they're getting 5,000 pieces, or higher. Generally they value more higher kind of orders, because everybody wants bigger orders and long-term business. So if you're a small Amazon seller just starting out and you're saying that, hey, I just want 100 pieces, they're most likely not going to reply to you at all. So that's one issue that you will face for sure. Also, a lot of the Indian manufacturers are like family owned businesses, they're small mid-sized companies, and they're not as professional as maybe the Chinese companies are. I mean, China has been exporting for like 30, 40 years, and it's really mastered the art of exports. And most companies are quite professional, they're quick to reply, and they've got processes in place, and they've become quite efficient over the years. India, Vietnam, other countries, not so much yet. Even though India has been exporting for a really long time as well, but still it hasn't got all of those processes in place yet, for the most part. Also, India, Vietnam, Turkey, what we found is that the pace of life is a little slower in these countries. So in China, you send out an RFQ on Alibaba, and within like 10 minutes, you'll get 10 suppliers mailing you and, sending you quotes. Whereas in India, Vietnam, or even Turkey, it will take 2 days, 3 days, then you follow up with them. And then, it just takes time. It's just like slower in these countries. So be patient when you're sourcing outside of China.
You have to be more patient in Europe.
Yeah. Oh, is it? Okay. Yeah, yeah, especially Turkey. So, yeah, I mean, those are some of the key ways to find suppliers once you have decided that you're going to, source the product. And when you use a sourcing agency like India Sourcing Network, then we, for example, manage the entire sourcing process. So you tell us that, okay, this is the product that I'm looking for. Then we go and find the right supplier for you. Um, we negotiate prices on your behalf. We work on sampling, prototyping. If there's any product development required, we do that. And then we work on you with you on the packaging, for example. And then we also facilitate payments, placing orders, and more importantly, we do QCs. So QC and inspection is part of the entire package as well. So that just makes
I
it a bit
was
more
going to ask that
convenient.
question actually. I was going to ask that. That was one of my biggest uh, question of this podcast actually. Okay, so you are going to explain. So you have mentioned these materials you can source till yet, and let me cover a little. So I'm not really wanna overwhelm it. So you have mentioned the first thing first. These materials you can source. That was the first. The second you have mentioned you have to do either physically if you are doing on a bigger volume, or if you are doing on a less volume, you can start with virtually from Alibaba or source. So the third thing you have mentioned about the process of the India, it's comparison between a little China to India, and that was good. So now we are coming towards for placing the order for payments. What are the protections for what protections we do have for the buyers actually? But is the like is it a question actually from all of the world? Is there any kind of scams, or we have to be more careful about that? Or generally, what are the tips we can avoid it? And these are the thumb rules you have to follow. Like we are following in China, we can get scammed in China if we are just going blindly. So, what are the thumb rules for placing the order for our actually? Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, there are bad people everywhere. And even in India,
Yeah, yeah.
there might be people who are just out to make a quick buck, and they're just looking for vulnerable people who don't know what they're doing and who are, sort of new to sourcing in India. So yeah, you've got to be cautious. That's for sure, especially when you're sourcing online. Don't just wire, $10,000 to some supplier that you've just met online and not vetted them. So first of all, what you need to do is make sure that the company is a legitimate company. Secondly, make sure that they actually have they're actually a manufacturer. And thirdly, make sure that they do have an export license. So those are the three things that you must do. And there are various ways of doing it. There are, like, for example, for checking if they are an exporter, you can ask for their IEC code. So if they have an IEC code, that means, and this information is publicly available. You can search for the company name and you can search for IEC code. And there's actually a website where you can go in, put in their IEC code, and you'll be able to see the company's information over there. You can also check their GST registration. Are they GST registered? If they are, then that's a legitimate company. And even the manufacturer, the type of company it is, will be mentioned in the GST registration. Are they a wholesaler? Are they a manufacturer? Are they an exporter? So there's some ways to, we don't have time to get into the nitty gritty of that, but basically you need to vet the supplier. You can also hire a third party inspection company to just go to the factory and,
Factory
check
audit.
out the factory. Yeah, like a factory audit. Exactly. It costs a couple of $100. We can do that as well if you want. And we just go check out the factory for you, right? So that's one thing, that vet the factory really, really well. And that will minimize a lot of your risk when you are sourcing from India. Because by and large, the professionally set up, good companies, they are not out there to cheat people. The companies that are out there to cheat people are basically maybe individuals who are just sitting in their basement and pretending to be a manufacturer. But if a company, if it's a factory that has a proper setup and they're already exporting, they're not likely to, cheat people, right? So that's something that you got to keep in mind. So number one, vetting companies really, really well. Secondly, make sure that the company actually makes the product that you are looking to source. Many times, what happens in India is that there is this yes culture where companies will say, yes, yes, of course, we can source this product for you, not a problem. But actually, they don't have the in house capability to do that. They will go and outsource it to somebody else. So it is, to some extent, the buyer's responsibility to check if they can actually do those things in-house. And again, there are various ways to check that. You can do a factory audit, you can do online, live video calls, for example. You can ask them for previous orders that they have shipped. And just, with conversations, you can kind of understand what exactly it is that they specialize in most companies, most mid-sized kind of companies, for example, the specialization is by material. So, for example, if a company does wooden products, then they have all the setup for wooden products. Typically they would outsource metal, but of course there can be some companies that are pretty big and they have both metal and wood, done in house. But if they do metal, wood, and glass, then most likely the glass is outsourced from somewhere, which is fine. Like if you're doing, a metal jar with a glass lid, then the glass will be outsourced from another factory, and that is fine. But if you're doing like a whole vase that's made of glass and you've given that to a metal factory, they're definitely going to outsource it to a glass factory. So, that doesn't make sense. So make sure that the supplier has the capability and expertise and experience in manufacturing the product that you are looking to source. The third thing that I would say is, in terms of, just being cautious and protecting yourself, is that make sure that you're giving very detailed specifications to the supplier. because a lot of times in sourcing, quality issues happen because of miscommunication, because you said something but the supplier understood something else, or you didn't say something and then the supplier assumed whatever it is they wanted to assume. So for example, little thing, let's say packaging, you did not specify the color of the box that you want. The supplier is just going to use whatever box they usually use. Or maybe you wanted a white box, but they don't know that unless you specify it. So be very detailed in your specifications, and that will also avoid any quality issues. In sourcing, there are two types of quality issues. One, of course, is that the product doesn't work as it should work, and it's been done in a bad way. The second thing is that adherence to specifications. That is also quality. Like, what did you specify? Maybe you want like a $1 product and you do want bad quality, right? Or maybe you want a $10 product and you want really, really good quality with high quality materials. So both are possible, but you as a buyer need to specify what you want, and then quality is actually checked by making sure that the product actually meets your specifications. So that is the definition of quality in sourcing. So those are the three things. In terms of payments, there's if you're paying for samples, for example, you can always use PayPal. That's very common. But don't use PayPal for very big payments, because the transaction fees and the conversion rates of the currencies and all is very high. So it's not recommended to use it for large orders. Use it for samples. That's fine. There is no Alibaba Trade Assurance in India. Like, Alibaba Trade Assurance is available in China, but it's not available in any other country outside of China. There's no escrow service as such. So, but what you need to do is, when you're placing the order, once you have vetted the company really well, and once you have, made sure that you've given good product specifications and everything, like 50% of your risk is gone by doing that. Then you need to make sure that you're only paying partial payment upfront. Don't pay 100% upfront ever. It's either 30% or 50%. Even if the supplier pushes you to pay 100% upfront, never ever do that. When the product is ready to be shipped out, always get a third-party inspection done. In fact, we at India Sourcing Network, we usually do two inspections. One is midline and one is pre-shipment inspection. So, but if your order is above $10,000, then, and if you're sourcing directly, then you should definitely do around two inspections, one midline and one pre-shipment. But if it's less than $10,000, then at least one inspection needs to be done. Now, once the product clears inspection, that's when you pay the balance, and that's when you get your product shipped out. So Alibaba Trade Assurance and all is a very new concept in sourcing, and it's mostly been, developed to protect smaller, mid-sized kind of companies. But traditionally, all importers and all, they've been, working on these principles of trust and really vetting the supplier really well, and then just protecting themselves by ensuring that they are checking quality.
Yeah, that's really, really good. You have mentioned each and everything, but you have to check from suppliers, how you can do the actual factory orders, which things you have mentioned about materials, and that is one of the best example you have gave. If someone is also manufacturing the shirts and also manufacturing the board, why you are going towards him actually? So what is the point? So that was really good. So what is the cost of the inspection in China and factory audit? If we talk about costs, what are the costs actually for doing the inspection and for the factory audits? And how much do we pay? Yes, yes, please.
Yeah. So we charge $200 per man day. That's what we charge. And there are other third-party inspection companies in India as well. So, for example, there's Asia inspection. No, they're known as KIMA, QIMA. There's KIMA. There's VTrust. So all of these companies are, they are there in China, and they're also present in India. So you could use those,
Kima is based,
and the prices around this.
Chinese firm actually.
right?
Yeah, Kima is a
They are
Chinese
based
firm, so
there.
they have, yeah, they have offices here. They do inspections in India. I think Kima is around $250, $300 per man day, and then VTrust around the same to 200. So it ranges between $200 to $300.
If it's frankly speaking, if it's 200, it's not much because if you are going to get a quality inspection in China, it will cost also from 200 to 250 or something like. Some some people do call me. We are getting the inspection in $50. I will just say best wishes for it.
Yeah,
But
that does not make sense. That does not make sense.
that doesn't make actually
Exactly.
sense actually. Yeah,
Yeah.
at all. Because sometimes what they do, they just hire a lean man for going for just check the product. Is it? He don't even know how to check how to vet a product. If there is a registered actually agent inspector is going, a registered inspector is going, and here is another debate. Inspector of shirts can't even can check the boards. He don't know. The inspector has to be, if the inspector has the knowledge of various material experience, because they say we are based in here and we can inspect that. It's not making sense.
It's not like
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
it doesn't work like this because you need a professional inspector, professional company, and professional. Each and everything has to be done professionally. They because they are in the game and they know how to vet a product. Like some of the inspectors, they really don't know even which moisture percentage has to be in wood, how much moisture has to be in the wood for the, and that these are the key thing if you are missing them. So we have covered almost every topic from payments to placing an order from hunting the supply. So let's come on the last part of the sourcing. I mean shipping. What option? I know India has great ports like Gujarat, and I know about the ports of India. So what options really do we have? How we get the shipping, and which are the options available actually?
Yeah. So, in general, if you're shipping from India or China, the costs are comparable. I mean, if you're shipping DDP from China, the cost can be cheaper, much cheaper. But if you're doing shipping the proper way, under your own name and filing all the import duties and doing it, the like white hat way and not any gray hat. Like DDP is gray hat, right? But if you are doing it the proper way, then shipping costs from China and India are comparable. Like currently, shipping costs are currently quite high from both China and India. And from India, 20-foot container is around $6,000 and around the same from China as well. So that's one thing that I want to, highlight. And we get this question a lot, like, are shipping costs cheaper or more expensive? So they're about the same. There are a couple of different ports in India, as you said, but the most commonly used port is in Mumbai, and most of the shipments from India go via the Mumbai port. Of course, if the factory is based in the east of India, on the east coast, or further away from the Mumbai port, then it can also go from the east coast. There are ports in the south and also in
What if
Kolkata,
the
for example. There's a port
manufacturer
there.
is what the manufacturer is based in near Lahore, actually on the border of Amritsar?
Yeah,
Which
so
port
then
they
what
will
happens?
use?
There are two options. So the product is sent by land, either by truck or by bonded rail, and it is sent to, again, either Gujarat or Mumbai. Both options are available. So there has to be some like land transportation from the factory to the port. And I mean, usually that takes 3 to 4 days, sometimes up to a week, depending on how big it is or things like that. So but most of the items are shipped out of Mumbai. And from Mumbai, the ship goes to the east coast of the US via the Suez Canal. It goes to New York. So that's the fastest, and that's the most cost effective way to ship product from India
What
to
if
the US.
what if we want to use the other coast of the US, like California
Yeah,
side?
if you want to use California, that's also possible. Then there's a port in the south on the east coast of India. So the ship will go there. And most likely there's going to be a transshipment. So there's going to be like, the ship will dock either in South Korea or Singapore. And then there's going
Got
to
it.
be like consolidation to another ship. And so generally takes slightly longer. So the sailing time from Mumbai port to New York Port is around 22 days, the actual time on the water. And then, of course, you add, time at the port. So for clearance and all of those things, so around 30,
Custom
35
and
days.
local deliveries
Customs
and
and yeah,
everything. Yeah,
exactly. So
but
about 30 to 35 days
if we
for
want to use
shipping from
the
factory.
but if we want to use the other side of the United States of California side, we can expect the like 7 to 8 days trans time in South Korea or Singapore, and it will add 7 to 8. Like it will be like 40 days or 42 days.
Yeah,
Like
around
I
40
did.
days or
Yeah.
45. Correct, correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
The time is same actually. The time is same actually. If we
For
do
China
compare
as
from
well.
because yeah, because if the ship is going in the California side from China, there is most probably chance they will because they don't go directly from China to they have layover in like in Singapore or Korea or sometimes. The time is same. There isn't. I really don't see the difference in the time. And you have mentioned the prices are the same, also same. And we can also get the fast sea shipping, right?
There's only one standard shipping. There's not that option of fast sea shipping or slow sea shipping that like China has. Yeah, and the other difference is DDP. Like if you're shipping DDP from China, then it can be it can be much cheaper than shipping the regular way. So that's why people say that, oh, China is so much cheaper. If you ship the actual way, then it's not cheaper. It's only DDP. Because in DDP, the shipment is actually being consolidated and it's being imported by one person. So you, as a seller, you're not the importer of record when you're shipping DDP, right? It's just this one company that is the exporter in China, and they're also like the importer in the US, and everything is being imported under their name. So, yeah, I mean, that's just the difference between DDP and regular shipping.
Okay, we have covered. I really do believe each and everything. Obviously, there are things if you really want to work or you want to really outsource, you have to go more and more and more. That's obviously there are too many materials, but it was. Do you have any some kind of like the course on the Udemy or your one-on-one sessions, or do you offer these things to your clients or to your audience as well?
Yeah, so we do
Are you
actually
offering?
have a workshop. If you go to our website, there's an India sourcing workshop that can be downloaded, and it's got like I think over 12 hours of content where you can learn everything about sourcing from India. So yeah, that can be pretty cool.
Yeah, it's really great if you really do, if you have it already. Okay, it's great, it's great. So I think we have covered everything. Any tips you wanna give us
Yeah, I think
to the
one of the
audience?
biggest things that I would say is that be adventurous. Sometimes people think that they get very comfortable with China. Like first of all, it's very difficult for people to start sourcing in China itself because it's a big risk, right? You're sending money to somebody that you don't even know, and you're just placing your trust in them. So but then China is pretty easy with Alibaba and trade assurance and all of those things. So then it becomes hard for people to do business in other countries. But there's a whole different world out there. Like China is not everything, so discover other countries, and you might find that there are very unique products that can help you differentiate your brand. I think Amazon is becoming so competitive these days that everybody is doing the same Me Too kind of products from China. So be different. By going to Turkey or India or Vietnam, you are standing out. You are kind of being adventurous and sourcing different types of products that other people are not venturing into. So don't be afraid to start something new or to venture into a different country. In fact, our sourcing trip is also coming up in October. We do this India sourcing trip twice a year, and the next one is in October. In case anyone's interested, that's like the best way to learn how to source from India. We visit a trade show where there are around 4,000 exhibitors that are all export focused. They've got beautiful products, very high quality, and we can also arrange factory tours for you. We do a sourcing conference where you can learn all about sourcing from India, and you can meet other brands who are sourcing. You can also meet service providers like QC companies and freight forwarders and lawyers, and like any type of service that you would need when you're sourcing from India. So it's like a whole package. It's like a crash course in sourcing from India. And if somebody is seriously considering sourcing from India, then this is the best way to start.
Okay, it's great. It's great. We have covered everything. If someone is really interested for the sourcing trip, she's the person. Contact her.
Yeah,
Risha. So thank you for your time. It was really,
you're
really
most
nice
welcome,
to have
Shahid.
you. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you so much. All right, bye.